Mr. Johri and Bulbul Johri is the only couple in Made in Heaven who truly are made in heaven.
I'm giving
Do we
spoilers
give
now.
spoilers now?
Yeah, if people aren't doing their job, like that's not in our hands. They have one job, which is to watch.
They styled my hair really well. That was a refreshing change.
Infidelity only happens in Delhi, usually, though.
Infidelity.
Infidelity.
Good one.
People sending me just photos of the opening credits. And that itself was enough for a lot of people to see a trans person's name up there.
She's so sassy and shrewd, street smart. The brief was she's just stepped out of a beauty parlor. That's what Bulbul Johri is.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to midday.com. We are here with the cast members of one of the most popular web series in Hindi, Made in Heaven. The season 2 has dropped, and I'm very excited to be here with Ishwak Singh, Mona Singh, Trinetra, Jin Sarbh, and Arjun Mathur to talk about the show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Midday.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right. Let me start with the OGs, the ones who are returning this season. Arjun, there has been a gap, and people have been talking about the long wait and all of that. You as one of the lead actors, were you kind of worried that the audience might lose the connect that they had in season 1 because of the long wait?
Yes, I was. That's the short answer, because I mean, honestly, like it's a lot of it's a lot of love and appreciation that we were getting, and it's only fair that that is returned promptly without delay. But circumstance unfortunately didn't allow that. I think we've still been fortunate to have all the people we do that stand by us and continue to give us love and support. Even now, we're just thankful for it. But yeah, I did many times have the thought that definitely, like, a little bit of audience love being taken for granted.
Was it? Did you shoot the season also after a gap, right?
See, the thing is, the makers did not anticipate the response that this show was going to get. So they never actually planned a season 2 until we got the response, So that's when they started writing, because, and they wanted to take their time with that because they wanted to do it well. Then our first delay in shoot happened in the year of COVID. We were going to start in 2020. We started 1 year later.
Yes.
And then we had like 2 lockdowns through the duration of our shoot. So it was a very, very tough situation. All good things take time also, as we know.
Jim, same question to you. Returning, was there any kind of a disconnect from your end? Did it take you some time getting into the head of the character after such a gap? What was it like?
Very easy. The team was essentially the same. The writing is so clear. It sets the scene perfectly. You know what the person is going through. The directors are the same. Your co-actors are the same. I'm not in their boat, right? Where they constantly are also managing new entrants, new energy, stars, their vibe during the weddings. I never have to deal with any of that. Mine stays consistent, essentially. The new member of my family that I didn't know about, right? I've lost a member. I've had a member gained. I've learned about this new thing, so much of my life. I think also what gets under Adil's skin is he just never suspected. He just never suspected. And so his father was as good at hiding this second life as he's been.
Yeah.
And that's that's a running theme right through the show, is male kids going on, taking after their father. I mean, Bulbul says that exact line, right? Talking about her son at some point, that the kid, how sometimes you're destined, or it's inevitable to repeat the mistakes of your parent. And how sometimes it's not, and how people can move away from that, and how people can change through that. And with the right kind of guidance, it can be avoided. But nobody spoke to Adil about his feelings when he was young. I seriously doubt that anyone did. His mom is self-obsessed in her own way. She's strong and guilt-inducing, very similar to Karan's mom. Not in the same way, but in her own way, you know, in like a rich, self-obsessed kind of way. So it was very easy. It was very easy because the teams were the same, people were the same, actors were the same. You just slip right back into that kind of groove that you have outlined on the record. You just put the needle in and you're back in the character. And anyway, my character for most of the season was just being like, what is happening?
Talking about the new entrants, Ishwak, I'm coming to you. This is a very different show from a Patal Lok or a Rocket Boys. What was it like, your thought going into the series?
You were in Rocket Boys, right?
Yeah, man. Thankfully, thanks for that. Well, they styled my hair really well. That was a refreshing change.
Yeah, you had to
Wearing
look like the hot chef, so of course.
Yeah, it was for once. I mean, I'm not the geek that I normally am presented as, so was pretty happy about that. You know, the kind of look that I have in the show. Otherwise, it was a very, but again, you know, for me, like when I read the character outline, it was just something that, you know, I was kind of really excited about, not just because of the makers, the show, the huge franchise that it is, and the amazing ensemble. I think it was something that, you know, is kind of, I was in that headspace of the character where I kind of just, you know, laid down on the walls and, you know, dropped the pretense. That's what the character is about. And I was pretty excited to explore that kind of personality. You know, he sees things from a very different lens, very non-judgmental, and a very liberal, democratic kind of lens, very humane lens. So it was interesting. I might look the part, but I'm not.
Right.
So,
was everybody as welcoming as Jim just was?
you know, my stuff is like mostly with Shobita, so it was kind of, that is something. I mean, she made it very easy for me, along with, of course, the makers and the entire cast and crew, the ones I worked with, because she's pretty much like the hostess. It was like, you know, going to her turf, and she kind of made it very easy. She gave me all the gossip, you know, whatever happened season one, who's an ass, who's not, who's all of that.
Oh shit!
Just making it up. No, she was very like kind of because look, I mean, if you stay with a character for so long, you just know it. It's just a part of your being, you know. And all these guys have that. I mean, when I see them on, so there was a kind of a pressure I felt for after a long time on this set, that it was kind of, because I'm coming and going. We're shooting Rocket Boys, Jim and I, and we kind of, you know, juggling both. And when you do that, you know, you kind of really need to fill in the blanks, because I mean, I shoot a scene, and also it's like, you know, I don't know what's happening in the script in the last 1 month. You know, there's while other characters have, there's a daily account of what these guys are doing. You know, wake up, do this. There's a certain routine. All that has to be created in a case like in a part like this, which kind of just makes it, you know, you there's little screen time but more work in the background. So yeah, I mean, I'm glad I found that groove after a while, pretty much, you know, right from the start. So it was fun for me all along.
Mona, coming to you, your character is just like awesome. I mean, when you enter, at first I thought, okay, probably not a great character to have around. And then obviously there are more layers to her as it opens. What was your thought? What was your idea of what Bulbul Johri is like?
You know, when I first read the script, I was completely blown away. I was like, this is a solid character with so many layers. And then, of course, you know, everybody gets to know what value she adds to the team.
Yes. She's
so gutsy, so straightforward, and you know, she carries her own scars with absolute dignity. And I absolutely loved playing Bulbul. Very complex and very, very challenging, and of course, very well written, and getting so much love. I'm just overwhelmed with the response.
I'm sure. Did you kind of, you know, have an idea about what your look is going to be like? Like, she dresses in a certain way, right? What was the thought behind that?
Yeah, the brief was she's just stepped out of a beauty parlor. That's what Bulbul Johri is. You know, curls and lipstick and blush and loud.
Very not Delhi.
Very, very not Delhi, West Delhi, yes.
And is this going to be a Delhi diss?
This
wali Delhi
entire
aunty,
show,
yeah.
this entire show is a Delhi dish.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Fair
that's the
enough.
brief as to how she, dresses up, and she's so sassy and shrewd, street smart. And then, of course, the crew finds out that she's right with her intuitions and with her gut. So yeah, it was quite a roller coaster journey for me to play Bulbul.
Right. Also, the another thing that I found really refreshing and unexpected was the kind of respect she gets from her husband through the show.
Yes.
I kind of expected Mr. Johari to be like, that's the typical man that you see on screen usually. And then he
Yeah.
gives her credit for who she is and her capabilities, which was really refreshing.
I'm telling you, I feel Mr. Johari and Bulbul Johari is the only couple in Made in Heaven who truly are made in heaven. There's so much in love with each other. There's so much respect for each other. It's
True.
fabulous to see an on-screen couple like that. Yeah.
True.
Amazing.
It's
Yeah.
because I think it's because they're like not. It's this ultra rich world which is like really
Yeah.
messed up,
Yes.
So I think that's what's protecting them.
Trinetra, coming to you. First, I will ask you, why do you think the entire show is a Delhi dish?
Because like Shashank says that multiple times, through his entire monologue, that this is Delhi, this is how it works, this is
Yes.
how society is, and it's such a mirror to society. So, of course, it's a Delhi dish.
You know what? As somebody who spent 15 years in Delhi and just moved to Bombay like 5 months ago, I kind of at times get a little offended. I'm like, really? Is it that bad?
Sorry, I just want to interrupt and say that it seems like that, but there are people like this everywhere. That's also
if the show is made in Bombay, it would be a Bombay dish.
Yeah, exactly.
It would be this. If it was made in Chandigarh, it would be a Chandigarh dish. You know what I mean? It
Correct.
would unravel the problems related to that particular city, which actually are pan-Indian in a way.
And the fact that it works for the entire Indian audience is because it's relatable to everybody, right? So it's clearly not just a Delhi thing. Misogyny, sexism, transphobia, these are not Delhi specific. I'm not from Delhi.
Exactly.
Infidelity only happens in Delhi, usually, though. That part at least I can agree.
Infidelity.
Infidelity.
Good one.
Good one, Arjun, really.
Stop insulting Delhi. He's getting angry.
Trinetra, talking about, of course, besides the fact that this is your first acting gig, you are also first in many ways. The show through Karan's character, of course, has represented the LGBTQ community beautifully in the first season. And it kind of goes a step forward with your character in second season. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think it is so refreshing because this is something that the community has waited for forever. I cannot tell you how many people, have seen this as such a personal win. There were people sending me just photos of the opening credits, and that itself was enough for a lot of people to see a trans person's name up there. So, unfortunately, that's how far behind we are in general in society, right? That this is a baby step, but in such a right direction. So, it was beautiful to see. And for me, this happened 3 years ago. I was 23 when I auditioned for the part, and I see myself be an absolute baby on screen. I'm just like, oh my God, I can't watch this. But at the same time, my parents watched it yesterday, and they said they were very proud. So it's a big moment, I think, for all of us, for everybody.
Beautiful.
Yes, totally.
I kept Googling and, to figure out if we've seen people play trans characters on screen, but a trans person playing a trans character on screen in a mainstream show, I'm not sure we've seen that before. So
we have actually. There have been very few instances. Like, for example, I think Pata Lok, had a trans person. And it's happened, a few times, but perhaps not as much screen time.
Okay.
So in that way, it's new.
Right.
Not in the way where you feel you get inside the person's head or you see the world from their perspective at times. I don't think that has happened before necessarily.
Yeah.
It's more like
this arc, this character development has been very strong, right? Like she has she has a life outside of her just being trans, right? She's
Yeah.
great at her job. She's doing these amazing weddings. She's clearly getting paid for the work that she's doing, and she's getting paid well to the extent that
Bulbul
Jauhari
says,
has
your
an issue
CTC
with
a
it.
bit too much. Yes.
So she has an entire life, which is not something you get to see in a lot of trans stories, where you're sort of reduced to just that one aspect of your being. So to see her just be human first and then everything else after, I think is really, that's new and that's beautiful.
I had a question about her history. Like when did she make the transformation?
So when I was given the brief, I was told she's 30 years old, right?
Okay.
And so Meher has transitioned in her early 20s. And she's, gone to college. She studied interior design. She studied political science, gone to NID. And it's been a while. So for me, that was new, because when I auditioned, I had transitioned like literally a year and a half ago. So it was all very fresh and new. So I didn't understand what it was like to be a trans person who's done this a while ago and is just living her life, So that's something in the workshops we had to break down and figure out a little bit. Because that degree of comfort in my own skin, I think, was just starting to happen. If I was playing her now at 26, 27, I think I would have done it very differently. But of course, that's just how it works for everybody.
There's the scene where you meet your friends.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But then if it had happened so long ago, wouldn't you have met your friends by now?
Perhaps, but I think these are people that she went to a boarding school with. So it's not like, so she comes from a different city.
So she's met
not
them
from Delhi.
After a long time again, and they're still like this.
So,
right.
Yeah. So Meher says in that conversation, I just moved to Delhi. I moved to Horse Cars. I found a place. So these were bachpan ke friends, and she was a boy with them.
Got it. Okay, cool. Because that was one moment where I was like, but if this has happened a while ago, because
she should have met
your character is clearly portrayed as someone who's handled these situations before, knows when things get uncomfortable, knows how to at least help the people around her. Like you go and have that chat with Shivani, with Jazz, right? When she says something that might be a little ignorant without her realizing that it is, right?
Yeah.
So then I didn't understand the timeline, but now I get it. Thank you.
And I think even if you've transitioned like how many other years, it's been like 6 years for me in real life, you never know how to prepare yourself for a conversation with people you haven't met in a bit, especially if they're all boys. And I've lived in boys' hostel. I know what boys' hostel is like, and I meet people from boys' hostel sometimes. Now I'm just like, I don't know how to talk to these people, because the locker room situation, I get that. That's how boys' hostel was. And so to be on the other end of that spectrum now is like, so.
What was the set like? Did you have questions from other people like Jim is asking now?
I think for me, Made in Heaven was literally the first set I stepped on ever. And the car scene, I'm giving a spoiler away, but the date that she has in the car and gets thrown out of it, that was my first day on set. Yeah. And I was terrified. I was so scared. I didn't know what to expect. I was just honestly hoping, like Alankrita I'd spoken to. I completely trusted her vision of this, the sensitivity of it. What I was scared of is my co-actor, right? Like, how is that going to work? Because initially there's going to be chemistry and there's going to be all of that. And then there's going to be violence. And Alankrita sort of sat us down and had us talking to each other. And I properly came out and had that conversation with him. And he was an absolute sweetheart. So, of course.
I play football with that guy. He's a sweet guy.
Yeah. And he was telling me how it's new for him also. He's not, done a scene with a trans person before, So it's always, I think, fun to just have these conversations and see, where you can go with the character.
This is the Independence Month and we're celebrating the spirit of freedom. And this show in many ways breaks out of convention. Actually, almost every character represents some sort of a breaking of a convention, some stereotype being broken, and every wedding has a issue or the thoughts that goes behind it. and there is there's a representation of some taboo in the society or a stigma that we are dealing with. I want to ask each one of you, starting with Ishwak, who's been very quiet. What was your favorite issue point that this season has addressed, that it has taken up, and you really loved that? Okay, you really connected with.
I think all of it. One thing that kind of stayed with me was Mona's, the domestic abuse and all of that. It always kind of moves me. I've heard, because I know people around me who kind of been through that. So that's kind of something that is that I find very difficult, get uncomfortable with, very difficult to wrap my head around. How could someone, actually subject another person to that kind of violence? I guess it has to be that.
Well, I love all the tracks. They're so well explored. Trinetra's, Arjun's, my God, it's absolutely, beautiful. But what I also like is the way Bulbul deals with her son, Dhruv. I think it is very important to start these conversations where mothers actually look out for their sons and give them the right education and right, guidance how to be in a society and not be misogynistic, and not look down upon women. It is so important to start these conversations. And as we are progressing along with this show, I think, it starts these important conversations and brings about some kind of change somewhere. Yeah.
Arjun, your character is going through like a plethora of issues, but which was the point that you really connected with, or which was the issue that you thought was really meaningful for you as an actor?
As an actor, the only issue, I guess, dealing with like mental health and drug addiction. So I think those are pretty pertinent issues as well. I think,
yes.
Mental health, childhood trauma, core trauma.
Yeah, what I like about the show is that it's constantly representing a similar issue, but at different levels of the socio-political framework. For example, the same thing Karan is going through, where he can borrow 5 lakhs from a friend, to pay off his debt, for example. Jazz's brother can't, and is going to be thrown into a rehab and beat, whatever it is. It's just the same situation is happening at a different level. And we see that it's in a completely different world if you have money. And this is happening constantly. I feel throughout the show, there's a similar battle happening at just a different level. Like there's a love triangle between me, Feza, and Tara, which it's also going on with Nadeem, Jazz, and Kabir to an extent, except they're more open and trying to be cool about it, and they're younger, and it's a different scenario, but things are happening, which is nice to see that basically we go through the same range of emotions and problems at every socio-political level. It just depends on, it's just the gains or the losses are different.
Right.
What particular issue? There's so many. I mean, so many. The idea that what I find really, really interesting about the show is that you can be 100% right and still feel guilty that you're treating other people badly, or that you're not taking that perspective. For example, Radhika Apte's character turns to camera at some point and, not to camera, but turns away from, I think, Tara? I can't remember. Maybe you, Meher, and says, am I making a mistake? Did I go too far? Did I go too far, Tara? Even though she's 100% right. Meanwhile, Adil, who can be 100% wrong in the situation, is so confident that he's doing the right thing, no matter what, which is just this interesting dichotomy between a more sensitive, intuitive person that has to question their very beliefs versus a boorish guy that has never had to question whether he's right or wrong throughout his entire life. So even though he's 100% wrong, he acts like he's 100% right, which is an interesting, I like that, like as a small issue, not like a major issue, but a good example of a tiny issue about how men are propped up for their wrong opinions and women are pulled down for their right opinions.
Right. No, but that's an interesting point. Trinetra, what about you?
I think it was very interesting to just see how patriarchy is screwing everybody over. in different ways, regardless of their gender or background or whatever. Meher's mom is also like, "Tum khana banana seekh lo, nahi to kaise shadi hogi." It's like everybody, regardless of how liberated or privileged or whatever, it's like this system has truly helped no one. But I honestly really loved Bulbul's character the most. From start to finish, right from the point that Mona enters the frame and the music. Can I just say the score elevates the
Yes.
whole thing to a whole other level.
Yes.
And from the point that Mona enters and there's the dhol play, I was like, this is going to be lit. But the way that it changes from comical and, sarcastic and lighthearted to
Exactly.
very dark very quickly.
Yes.
And the way she talks to her son. Because initially you're also thinking that, is Jauhari the abusive one? Is he abusing
Yes.
her? Like what's going on? And then you eventually realize he's the biggest green flag ever. Like
Yeah.
he's the most feminist husband.
Yeah.
She's literally driving the car and her son is like, "Ladkiyan gaadi nahi chalata."
Yes.
I'm like, hello.
Yeah. You wonder where he did get that from, but no, good.
I love everything about how it was represented, patriarchy in particular with Bulbul.
Thank you so much for creating such lovely content, being part of this show. I hope we get to see a season 3, season 4, and so on. Thank you so much for your time today, Arjun, Jim, Mona, Trinetra, Ishwak. Such a lovely conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bonnie.
Subscribe to Midday India. Get direct notifications on all our videos by clicking on the bell icon.